All votes will be taken by a roll call vote. Now ask the library director to proceed with roll call.
Chairperson Kristen Higaki,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Kuldeep Basta,
Present.
Board Member Eric Nerlich is absent. Board Member Sharon Sue,
Present.
Board Member Barbara Leeson Bear.
Present.
We'll move on to minutes approval. Minutes for the June 16th, 2025 meeting have been delivered to board members. If there are no corrections or additions, a motion is in order to approve these minutes. Is there anybody on the line?
Yes, but it's, Ann Collins, the manager. So no questions.
Do we have a motion?
I can make a motion if no one has that.
So you can.
Chair Kristen Higaki. Vice Chair Basta,
Approved.
Board Member Sue,
Approved.
Board Member Leeson Bear.
Approved. Any more applications? We have no donations, no presentations. Unfinished business. On to the new business. The approval of the library collection development policy. Right.
Okay,
Turn it over to Court and Alex.
hi, thank you. So to give a little background about why we've been updating our collection development policy.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is Court Fields. I'm a senior librarian with the Customer Experience and Technology Division.
My name is Alex Pantazis. I'm a librarian too with Youth Bookmobile and Collections Division.
So to give a little background of why we're updating our collection development policy, which is recently updated back in 2019. But there was a reason for our current situation. In September of 2024, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law Assembly Bill number 1825, also known as the California Freedom to Read Act. So what this bill requires for every public library jurisdiction is that any library that directly receives state funding to establish that they would need to establish, adopt, and maintain a written and publicly accessible collection development policy for its libraries by January 1st of 2026. So coming up. The bill would require that the collection development policy, among other things, guide the selection and deselection of library materials, and also establish a process for community members to share their concerns regarding library materials and request materials to be considered for inclusion in the library's collection. It also stipulated that there were certain objectives that they wanted to include in all of the collection policies in the state. And that was one of the main impetuses for updating the policy, was to include those objectives. So at the behest of Tracy Gray, the library director, we formed a committee consisting of Alex with Alex and Julie Jackson with youth, myself and Charles Mosner with adult, who are responsible for the adult collection, and Laura Birch, who's with the administration as the analyst. And so the five of us, we came up with, so we took a look at collection policies throughout the state and throughout the country to see what they included, what we wanted to include in ours, how we could change the current one that we had. We even ran things through ChatGPT to see what they said about collection development, and they had some interesting ideas. But ultimately, we kind of took what we had as our current collection development policy, polished it up a little bit, made it a little shorter, added the requirements from the state bill, and created our policy to go. And so I do want to, am I able to attach it so I can show?
Yes.
Look at the top. Okay, so first and foremost, we wanted to include our library mission. Anything that kind of stems from what we do in the library kind of comes from this library mission, that the library is for everyone, and that is a free resource to help the community connect, create, and learn. And so in creating this policy, we wanted to make sure that folks knew what goes into adding things to the collection, why we add certain things, why we don't add other things, and a process for people to challenge what's in the collection, and also for people to make suggestions to add to the collection as well. So the goal ultimately is for the library to make readily available the information and materials that the community wants, that folks want to read, and to be engaged with what the library has to offer. The objectives portion, this is kind of stipulates what was required for the Assembly Bill 1825. Kind of the language is taken directly from the language of the bill. And I think it really follows with what the library was already doing. We're already kind of meeting the diverse interests of the community and respecting what the community needs. We want to continue being an important center within the community and kind of providing the information, the ideas that the community requires. Adding materials that we want to provide for the interest of all people, and we shouldn't kind of discriminate against anybody, and try to take a wide view in what we should include in the collection. And finally, we want to make it kind of accessible to people despite social or political, moral, or other kind of viewpoints as well, to make it more accessible for everybody.
And after laying it out in the objectives, it's broken down just a little bit more by section. So first and foremost, we want to cover what goes into actually selecting the everything that we keep in the library. So we let it be known that we get things in a variety of formats, both physical and digital. And we might also get more copies of something than others just based on community needs. And so our primary guidelines for how we select are things that are relevant to the community. And being a city library, we have that really unique opportunity to hone in on our community and be able to purchase what's wanted here. We also want to make sure that we are buying things that are accurate and current. So making sure that we're maintaining the collection in that way. Availability is also a concern, given our primary vendors and just what's available for us to catalog. And so that might be taken into consideration. Also, anything that's getting a lot of attention or press, that also might be things that our community is more interested in. And we want to make sure that we have a diverse representation of voices, because it goes back to the library is for everyone. Not everyone's going to want to read the same thing. We also take into consideration what we already have in the collection and how much and how it maintains balance. How much could be available elsewhere. And we also have a mention of Link Plus later of how that can kind of supplement the needs. And then also the suitability of format given the physical constraints of the building and the library.
And so in our previous collection development policy, we broke it down: fiction, nonfiction, world languages. We thought that we didn't need to break it down such. It was too detailed, and we just needed to make it more general. But one thing that we did keep was for the History Center, because the History Center is such a unique repository of historical documents and books and maps and manuscripts and photos, that we want to call out what is included in that collection, and that it doesn't necessarily fall within the same selection or withdrawal guidelines that are in the rest of the policy.
And so just a quick question on that. I noticed that also there was a mention of friends either in this document or another, where, they have different guidelines because they're different entities. But do they have, policy documents akin to this on their own? Does that make sense?
I don't believe we do have one specific to the History Center, but that could be something that we can take a look, kind of determining what we accept as donations, because I know that we receive a lot of donations. They might kind of fall under that kind of policy of what we keep in the collection and what we would kind of disperse of that no longer falls within our scope.
And same question for the Friends, do they have a similar?
I believe we removed the Friends from, it was in the older policy.
Okay,
We didn't want to distinguish too much because the Friends, it's mainly kind of like a high demand collection, and it kind of already falls within the scope of the policy.
okay, great.
We made it a little further down too. We'll get to, we have a separate area for gifts and donations, and so that's kind of where it will fall under.
Yep.
Make it a little more general.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we also have suggested items for purchase. As I said, we're a city library. We're really unique in that we can really hone in on the needs of our community. So we wanted to make clear that you are encouraged to suggest purchases at any time, and they will be taken into consideration, but not necessarily everything will be added based on the things that we've already discussed. And it's also where we do a separate plug for Link Plus so that patrons know that we're also part of a consortium. And that even if we can't personally carry their collection or their suggested purchase, we are likely to be able to find it elsewhere for them. We also have a bit about how we maintain our collection. We try to be, one of the things that we did when we went through is make this a little bit less jargon for folks who don't necessarily know the library lingo. So rather than calling it weeding, we switched it to collection maintenance and just laid out how we're constantly assessing how it's serving the needs of our community, and that a lot of things go into this decision, whether it's not relevant anymore, or also sometimes things are just a little too well loved and we might need to remove them, and whether or not we replace them will depend on whether or not the need is still relevant or whether we supplement it from other areas of the collection.
So like in the previous policy, we include language about the Library Bill of Rights, the freedom to read and the freedom to view, as laid out by the American Library Association. We don't kind of restrict what we add to the library based on kind of personal characteristics of the author or kind of the information contained within. Works are kind of considered as a whole. We're kind of considered not on the isolated parts that other folks might focus upon. We want to make sure that everyone has access to the information that they need, and that all kind of opinions and expressions are open to folks, and there is a way that we can accept challenges if folks have an issue take issue with an item in the collection, where they can submit it through kind of a formal reconsideration policy. I can show you that form at the end, just to give you an idea of what goes into that and how we respond to it. And you want to talk about the...
Yeah, we also wanted to make sure to include that the library isn't responsible for material chosen to be read by minors. If you deem your child worthy of or ready to have a library card, they can ask us for anything. We are not going to make the judgment that this item is inappropriate. That being said, we obviously take measures to make sure that things stay appropriate in particular areas, but it's explicitly stated that the library does not act in lieu of parents when it comes to our selection policy, because we're selecting for everybody.
And then finally, we wanted to add something about gifts and donations. The library accepts gifts of money and materials, but we reserve the right to accept or decline items. Typically, when we receive items at the desk, they're expected to go into the local author collection, or if we don't think it fits in our collection, we can always send it to the Friends of the Library to include in their book sales. And then any funds kind of received from that would go back towards library collections and programs and services. And then I do want to show. This is the request for consideration form. I think this is a couple of years old as well. So this is if someone were to come to the desk to challenge an item in the library, we would have them kind of submit this form, and then it would go to the appropriate person to respond to it. Kind of providing their name and their kind of what book they wanted to report, and kind of what concerns they had. and any additional informations.
So then, just to clarify, this gets filled out by a person and it goes to like a purchasing manager, the library.
They
It
could,
doesn't rise to the board, right? It just.
it would rise to the board, we would receive it back at the desk, and the appropriate manager or selector would kind of form a response to the person making the challenge.
But then the board doesn't weigh in on top of that. It's between those parties.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
These are materials that are already in the collection versus if somebody makes a request and
The
the
request is
library
denied.
denies it, they're not re-challenged. That's quite difficult.
Correct. That would be a different situation. They'd probably link them back to the collection development policy and kind of the specifics about why we would not include that in book in the collection.
May I ask what the general approval rate is for adding to the collection versus referrals to Link Plus?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if it's
It's like
different,
case by case.
different than you, but it varies quite a bit, even by format. But I know that we're pretty responsive if folks want to add something to the collection, and if we see that it's popular elsewhere, if it's available in Link Plus, but it's checked out at all the other libraries, yeah, then we need to add that to the collection because it's popular. But if it's an older title that's available elsewhere, yeah, we'll kind of push them towards Link Plus. I couldn't give a percent, but it's probably like
The percent for youth, I would say we try to honor most purchase requests. The biggest barriers that we tend to find is if it's not available like through any of our usual vendors. And also sometimes people will request a very niche book that we know will only be probably relevant for about a year and cost like $400, and it's not necessarily fitting within the collection of what we offer. And for that, we might refer them to Think Plus. But for the most part, if it's available through our vendors, we try to add it to the collection.
Yeah, I'm remembering when a new librarian had mentioned a particular title and then mentioned that because of how fragile it was, it would be hard to have in the collection. And then I found it at the Friends of Library sales.
Oh, well,
It's amazing.
Okay.
It was meant to be, but it was helpful to even have the title recommended and then to hear why it wasn't such a good book for circulation.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I hadn't thought of that before.
But I would assume, like, maybe hypothetically, if Link Plus, maybe a book is 50 years old and it used to be popular, isn't so popular now, but it's still at various libraries around the country, like that would be a good Link Plus candidate. Right?
Be too, or it's something like that and it's just out of print. Sometimes we
Right.
can't get it anymore if it's an older title.
Great.
In addition to out of print, materials that are usually referred to Link Plus are academic or scholarly titles that are available in like colleges and universities that are not really appropriate as a public library collection.
Right. That makes sense, like research journals or textbooks or other things along those lines. Okay.
fairly trained at pointing people in the right direction of where to go. Like if it's academic journal, you might want to go through ILL or go through a university.
Maybe even check some of our databases and you might be able to find a particular article.
We don't want to say no completely. We want to give them options. We want to say, okay, it could be available here, or you could go through another way to access the item.
What kind of materials are $400?
Reference textbooks. The one that I was thinking most recently, it was a very particular photography textbook. That was also more geared towards teens. And it just wasn't within the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had a random question. I think for the history collection, I always thought that it was, there was a lot of influence from where does it come from? Like a history
The Mountain View Historical Association.
Yeah. And I wasn't clear on how much of the collection is curated and decided that, you know, like within here, or is it more there?
Or is it both, or?
I can. Okay. So there was an agreement many decades ago in the 1960s between the city and the Mountain View Historical Association. So this was before we were in this building, and then that the city stored some of their items. So all of that, when this building was made and the History Center came about, everything that was city-owned as well as some of the MVHA, the Mountain View Historical Association items were moved into this building. So they're actually doing, I think James was here to do a presentation maybe last year. There's currently a team doing an inventory of all the historical items so that everyone knows what is the libraries of the cities and what are items of the historical association. So some of the items you see in the display cases or photos in the files may be donated directly to the library or were donated to the historical association or a mix. And the agreement says that the library can determine what we store for them. So we have some criteria of what we're able to store. We don't have a huge amount of space. So Ann Collins, our library manager who oversees the History Center, works involved. James, our librarian. So someone may reach out to us and want to donate directly to the library, or if they don't, you know, a city resident moves and donates to the historical association, they may ask us to store their items for them. So it's a mix. I would say maybe 50-50 of what cities and part of Mountain View Historical Association. Once the assembly of all that is done, we'll know more.
Because I was wondering with respect to whether or not you do have that section in here, or you say, you know, the association has this policy and you link towards that, right? Or if you have both, right, and say that there's a joint kind of agreement on what's in there.
Trying to think of what we have on our website, kind of, when we, because we can accept donation, there's a donation form, and they kind of stipulates whether or not to donate to the library or to the historical association, but I don't know
Yeah.
kind of if there distinguishes between the two.
Just a thought.
Just a point of history, the historical materials used to be in the old building in the corner of the children's room upstairs in a caged off area. It had a serious metal mesh cage around it. We had one of those downstairs in the reference area as well for materials that you are not supposed to give out to most of the things. That's how things have changed. But like the historical society people would come in and with the key to the cage, and we had, you know, occasionally children's was given permission to access that key and go in and get for something really particular and take it out. But most of the time, nobody was in the cage, but the historical society for years.
Specifics on kind of what we. Something that we can. Creating for the History Center specifically to kind of winnow through some of the collection that we have, because We have a couple of storage rooms of stuff
Yeah.
that we've been kind of working through and
A lot, right?
yeah. It's just the form, if someone was interested in donating to I think the Historical Association has a separate form as well.
And just so that you will know, they're a city entity, they're a separate,
Nonprofit.
yes,
With its own BIN.
community.
Yeah.
That'd be the way.
Go, try the green button maybe, if that might give something.
Specifics on digital scanning of it or adding to the. Not,
Yeah,
not so much about what exactly they're looking for, what they usually collect.
You've done a a really good job at, excuse me, simplifying and making the language clear to the average user. Like you say, getting out the library perspective a little bit, that use the language that librarians use, and um, it looks like a really nice response to the California legislation, which echoed what Mountain View was doing anyway. Fortunately, that wasn't new.
Yeah.
For all of you to have to deal with. Are you getting a lot of challenges? Has the rate increased, decreased, leveled off?
In youth, it's been pretty consistent since it'll be 7 years that I've been here in December. And I think we've had maybe 3 challenges that entire time.
That sounds pretty much what the rate was over the years. There were really very, very few people came in, at least in children's, that challenged much of anything. But this also takes a little bit, and the process that you've got now for selection takes a little bit of the personal bias out of the buying situation, which would enter in at times. One of the people that I worked with would not buy Carl the dog books. We did not have, we were one of the few libraries, Mountain View had everything, but we didn't have Carl the dog because she firmly believed that that was going to give parents the idea that they could leave a child home alone with a dog. And she could not be convinced. And then we had another librarian that would not buy SpongeBob. Just could not, just refused to buy SpongeBob. And that was in the video collections and other things. And people, why don't you? And there wasn't a real good reason, except it was personal bias at the time.
Thank you. Thank you. You all have to approve the policy.
so the first document that we're looking at, the Word document.
Motion to approve the policy as is.
And I'll second.
Chair Buckeye, Vice Chair Imposta,
Approved.
Board Member Sue, approved, Board Member Weason Bear.
to the staff announcements, today's requests and reports, so it's the library directors and board.
Yeah, so it's hard to believe summer reading is over. We had our end of summer reading celebration already 2 weeks ago, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But as you see from the report, a very great summer, so activities, which in the library. So the staff, the new bookmobile schedule, back to going to schools. um, is out on our calendar. And just getting ready for fall in the school year and everything that comes along with that. And then related to personnel, I'm excited to announce that our senior librarian Renee Team was promoted to library manager of the youth bookmobile and collections. The first day was today. Excited to share that news with you all. And then we have a new senior library assistant coming on board in the same division, Selena Torona, September 15th. We're excited about that. So we only have 2 vacancies now. So knock on wood, that's the least we've had in a while. So we're hoping to hear from HR very soon to get our next recruitment going. But yeah, very exciting to share those 2 recruitments with you.
What are the prospects for your next fiscal with the budget going through with things like this sorting system and all?
Yes, so we had asked for the sorting system, the whole check-in, check-out system in the budget. It was approved in the city's capital improvement project funding for fiscal year, not this fiscal, but fiscal year 26-27. So, starting next July, we will go out to bid for a new updated system. This one it's past its usual lifespan, so it's about, so we're due, so excited to do that. It'll be a very big project involving IT and public works, probably some engineers and so forth, on that, but exciting to get new updated equipment to hopefully help with staff and have things be checked in quicker and so, yeah.
Any other big news out of the budget for you?
No, no news out of the budget. Just what I had updated the board about with, the state library and federal funding. But we're moving forward with, our projects. We'll be getting, new laptops for our programs. So especially like our tax prep programs, they use the laptop. So we'll be getting new. I know Cord and Melvin are working on Wi-Fi,
was gonna ask about
printing,
that.
the Wi-Fi printing.
Just Wi-Fi, like I feel like it's very spotty.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if other people have.
Oh, we'll have to, if it's certain areas or just in general, because sometimes something's out that they'll have to replace. Okay.
I haven't heard anything lately.
Uh,
Sometimes we'll have a router out in a certain area of the library and
Yeah,
it'll be spotty, but I think lately it's been, I haven't heard anything.
I see. Okay.
Um,
My daughter complained like a few days ago.
Okay. And then, what else with the budget? Our limited period positions continued, so, and then our career online high school stipend program is continuing. We received $100,000. City council approved that funding to continue, so that's very exciting. Yeah, and then city council at the budget meeting, they talked about what it would cost and what would be needed to expand weekend hours, most likely Sunday hours. So, we weren't ready to, we didn't have that information, but the city manager will bring some suggestions and some, what it would cost to the city council's mid-year budget meeting, which is in February. So the staff and I will be working on what that would entail, whether it's opening one extra hour or two for, most likely on Sundays, since Saturday we're open, since Sunday we're only open 4 hours, so be working on what that would cost, how much more staff we would need, for that to happen. Working on that, and then, you know, depending on city council's decision, that could happen this fiscal year or possibly next fiscal. And then no news from IMLS. I know some states have had some funding restored. We've gotten bits and pieces from the state library. I know the funding for digitizing a lot of historical, the California Revealed project, which we submitted several items, the yearbooks that got digitized and other things that we're not sure if that funding's been restored yet. The parks passes with the the statewide parks passes funding is continuing. So I know last year that was a potential cut, but that got restored and that should be funded till, I think, for another year at least, till next December.
Nice, because that's a very popular program.
Yeah.
I mean, like, those
Yeah.
passes get a lot. Of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so, and the librarians have their new budget for collection selecting, so they're moving right along, selecting all the fall and winter titles, fun stuff, holiday things that are coming out in the publications. Yeah.
May I ask about, I emailed with Laura Birch about the lactation pod.
Oh,
She said to ask you in August.
yes. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I forgot that. So the lactation pod was delivered on last week on Monday. And it still needs some permitting requirements and we need to have it secured for to have earthquake safe. So it'll get, so once that is done, it will be operable. But if anyone wants to see it, I will show them after the meeting. We can go downstairs so you can see it. We have the key to open it, but well, I don't know if we should open it. We'll wait till it's operable. Yeah. Yeah, but it's, you can see the outside and the inside. We ordered a chair and a table too for it. But yes, it is there and yeah, we will definitely let you all know once it's operating. It'll have a big marketing push.
I think it's going to break the internet for the Mountain View Moms group.
Yeah, I hope so.
Because they were surprised when someone advertised the request to purchase, which I thought was
Oh,
understood. And so
yeah.
this is going to break.
I hope so. Yes, I hope everyone takes advantage of it and yeah. Comes to the library and yeah,
Yeah,
that's
very cool. I noticed, on your report, there was some display of like butterflies and yeah, like, is that only in the children's section?
yes. I'll let Alex talk about
So
that.
that was part of our summer reading program
Yeah.
this year, in addition to doing bean stacks, since a lot of families we found haven't wanted to go online to log, we gave out little scratchers. And so when they picked up their summer reading and had their first day, they got to make a little caterpillar and It was a fun little craft made out of upcycled board books, so things that had to be taken out of circulation, but we cut it into circle shapes and they got to write their favorite book on it, put it on, and then when they scratched off the halfway point on their scratcher, so 15 days of reading, they got to come in and make a butterfly. And that got up on the wall too. So they've been coming in and visiting them all summer. And it's really fun because the littles will come and they'll find like, I know my caterpillar was here, where is it? And now it's a little scavenger hunt too. So they're up for now.
Nice.
I was actually wondering if, there would be enough where you would also display it like in the main, the front area, because I think what it does is that it also, not everybody goes into the kids center, but
Yeah.
they may have kids or, like, and so just be drawn. I don't know. When I saw the picture, I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like my kids don't go into that section anymore.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with it. Like, I loved it.
I think there definitely could be enough. So maybe that's something we can talk about with Tracy for next year.
Very cool.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I should imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I feel like I would see a lot of joy for them finding it, right? Like, it's still
Yeah.
being up.
Yeah, I know. My head's spinning with ideas.
Yeah.
Scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Years ago, we had, we started in the old library with a board that was at the top of the stairs that I think was, sort of 12-foot big bulletin board. And, when I started, Karen, that summer, had the idea of having some sort of things that kids could add to the board during the summer. And that evolved over the years into a board that we had to have attached to the bookshelves downstairs before the remodel, because when we came into the new library, at that point it wasn't open yet, and discovered that the placement of the fire hose had been put in the back wall directly in the middle of the big black wall that was supposed to be the display board. And we came in and Karen and I looked at it and went, oh, and the guy said, well, we didn't know where to put it, so it seemed good to put right in the middle of the wall. And it's like, took up this whole big beautiful wall that we couldn't use. So the guys from the city built us a big board that they had to come in and attach it to bookshelves. And but we used to have trails, and they would put the stickers on, and every year it was a different theme, and the background to it matched the theme of the summer, but they would add dots to it all over it for every book that they read. And we had thousands of dots that we put up, but the idea that originally Karen thought, oh, just randomly placing something would be enough, but the kids immediately started to form trails. And they wanted their things either clustered or identifiable, like where's my caterpillar? Or they wanted it to go somewhere. So we kind of followed their lead on that. And we had mazes and we had escaped hamsters. One summer they were trying to get back to their cage and all sorts of things, but those were a lot of fun. And just that delight that they had when they come in and see what's happened to it, what's it doing now, and it got to be the point that some would come in and want to put up like 100 stickers. And so we had to work the board and anticipate how many space for that. But every 50, there would be something special that they could do. So there was all this strategy of, no, I'm not gonna do my stickers today because it's too far away from the 50. And if I save them and come in the next time, I might hit the star. And it got to be quite involved. And we had to learn and adapt with their strategic thinking, how to make it all work. That was a lot of fun.
We are on to agenda setting.
So September meeting is scheduled for the staff to present the year in review, the fiscal year 24-25, as well as the performance measures.
Online.
To adjourn. 7:56 PM. And the next Board of Library Trustees meeting will be held on Monday, September 15th, 2025 at 7 PM. All right.